Welcome back, everyone, to the fourth episode of the Patriots Press Podcast, where we talk about the Somerset Patriots, the Yankees AA affiliate. I'm Greg Johnson, talking again today with Matt Cardos, and drum roll, please, Mike Ashmore, who's back. Mike is our friend from mycentraljersey.com who was with us on the first pod and was absent for pods 2 and 3 because he was in Texas for most of July. So I'll let him explain a little bit about why he was away. But yeah, Mike, it's good to see you, man. We missed you. How are you doing? Tell us all about your July.
Well, first of all, I'm not your friend. I'm your guy. Second of all, I was away in Houston for 24 straight days with the New Balance Baseball Future Star Series, powered by Program 15 Sports down there. Yes, got to get in the whole read, or else the check doesn't clear. Doing some travel ball stuff down there with the 26s, 27s, 28s, 29s. We have a lot of really cool events coming up for that, so hopefully you guys can check that out. But really good to be back in Somerset the past week or two. That Binghamton Somerset series was a lot of fun. Glad I got a chance to check out some of that, but I know we'll get to that soon. So,
yeah. Somerset just finished up a 6-game series at home against Binghamton, which we were all there for some of that. They split 3 games with Binghamton and are now a game and a half behind Binghamton. I'm sorry, they're 3 games behind Binghamton in the standings, but they're 1.5 ahead of Hartford for second place, which that's really the key right now because I actually made a mistake before in a previous pod where I said that Somerset had to win the second half in order to make the playoffs. That's actually not technically true because Binghamton won the first half. So if Binghamton wins the second half again, the second playoff spot in the division will go to the second place team, which is Somerset currently. So they need to just stay ahead of Hartford. But yeah, it was a great series with Binghamton. Like I said, they split the 6 games. We got to see Darryl Strawberry last Wednesday, who was in town to sign autographs, meet with fans. Obviously, everyone knows him as a former New York baseball great with the Yankees and the Mets. And just a lot of great prospects in that series. I was fortunate because Binghamton just sent a bunch of their top prospects, the Mets' top prospects, up to AAA after that series. Sunday was a huge game that I know, Mike, you were there for because Elmer Rodriguez-Cruz, one of the Yankees' top prospects, went up against Jonah Tong, one of the Mets' best prospects, who is one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. And by all indications, it looked like ERC actually outpitched him a little bit, won that duel. He has now thrown 19 straight scoreless innings over his last 3 starts, really dazzled here in his first 5 starts in AA. Mike, just tell us a little bit about what you saw on Sunday.
Well, I know I mentioned the Future Star Series, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but Elmer was one of my kids back then in 2020, so it's cool to get to cover him now again in Somerset, kind of in my backyard. And to say I ever thought that it would get to this point with him, I think it'd be a little bit silly. I mean, you can make a case that he's knocking on the door as one of the top 10 pitching prospects in all of baseball, and he outdueled a guy who is firmly in that conversation in Jonah Tong. Really good, just really dominant at times, confident. It's pretty free and easy, 96 to 98. Throws multiple for strikes. I know Pipeline put out their rankings and the other day, and LaGrange is still ranked over ERC. I'm not sure about that one. We can probably get into that one a little bit later at another time. But for me, that's probably a 2 or a 3 big league starters somewhere, whether it's with the Yankees, whether it's somewhere else. We'll get into the deadline stuff too, but that's a guy who has all the tools to be a big leaguer for a very long time, and a very good big leaguer for a very long time in a starting role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ERC is really, I think him and Ben Hess are kind of the 2 main attractions in Somerset now coming down the stretch here. They both recently got called up from high A. I made note of this last week and actually got some traction on Twitter that Somerset now has 4 of Pipeline's top 11 Yankees prospects all in their rotation, along with LaGrange and Brock Selvage. So a lot of good pitching to watch in Somerset right now. They've lost some hitters to promotions and trades, but the pitching is going to keep them in games for sure and give them a chance here to make the playoffs. ERC on the year, he's got a 2.02 ERA, 115 2/3 innings. I believe that leads the Yankees system. 129 strikeouts, second only behind LaGrange. Yeah, he's been everything that the Yankees had hoped for, really. When they traded for him last December from the Red Sox, they sent catcher Carlos Narvaez to get him, 21-year-old from Puerto Rico. Yeah, I mean, we talked to him the other day, actually. He said he's really been mixing in like 6 different pitches because he's got 4-seamer, sinker, sweeper, gyro, curveball, and a splitter. I don't really think he throws the splitter much, but he's got a lot of tools in his arsenal that he can use. And he said, I think too, the sinker and the sweeper have really become high usage pitches for him this year. He's higher than before. So, yeah, Matt, what are your thoughts on him? Because I know you and I weren't there on Sunday, but we saw him, in the last week or two.
Yeah, I'm kind of echo what Mike says, man. He has lived up to the billing of the prospect type. And one interesting thing that I think Mike could also kind of echo is you saw the start that Narvaez got off to in Boston, and a lot of the discourse on Twitter and social media has been Yankee fans kind of trampling the organization for making the move and moving off Narvaez, and how could you give up this amazing catcher to a division rival? And I know both of us have kind of come back and said, I don't know if you guys are watching minor league baseball, or I don't know if you are even aware of what the return is for Narvaez, but like, this guy's showing out right now. I don't think the Yankees envisioned and I certainly don't think Boston envisioned when they made that move that ERC would have the season that he's having. He leads the organization minor league wise in ERA and WHIP, innings pitched, and batting average against, second in Ks. I mean, the guy's kind of moved right up in the system and firmly entrenched himself as one of the 2 or 3 best arms in the system. And I think that's a pretty good return for a guy who had a good first month and a half, 2 months as a big league catcher, and he's doing well there. But I mean, if you look at his last 150, 175 at-bats, Carlos Narvaez is kind of doing what maybe most people thought Carlos Narvaez would do at the major league level after a hot start. So I think we kind of just picked his brain a little bit about the Boston thing, and doesn't seem like he wants to jab too much at Boston, but he's definitely a guy that's also carrying a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I'm kind of interested to see him pitch on Saturday this week, going to Portland and kind of showing out in front of his former organization. But yeah, these 2 starts against Binghamton this past week, I think says a lot about the guy showing up in a big moment. You have Jonah Tong, who, like you said, Greg, is for all intents and purposes probably the top billing in terms of pitching prospects this year in the minor leagues. And he went out and outdueled him twice. Didn't shy away from the moment, didn't kind of let the outside noise and all the energy of the postseason stuff that you have going on with all the big prospects in the Binghamton lineup kind of get the best of him. I mean, there's a lot of attention put on that series. There's a lot of media there. There was a lot of outside noise surrounding that matchup, and he went out and just shoved 13 scoreless in the 2 starts, 15 punchies. And I think it's as good as you could hope in the first 5 starts, how you'd hope the guy would perform for his first taste of the upper levels, and he's really shown up.
Yeah, I can't quite remember a guy coming up to Double-A and being like this good, going deep into games. Like I said, 19 scoreless innings in his last 3 starts, 20 strikeouts. I mean, he's been pretty much unhittable. I thought the thing that really stuck with me when we talked to him, when was it, last Thursday? He said, ever since he got here, they've really put emphasis, like to the Yankees last December, they really put more emphasis on trusting all of his stuff and using all of his pitches. And they really just kind of helped up his confidence, really just getting to 2 strike counts and just going after guys with his best stuff. And, what's interesting is that he's now, I think, 26 innings over his career high from last year. And he said he feels good. Like he feels like he's got a lot left in the tank. I remember a couple starts ago, I was looking at his velos, and like his 80th pitch of the game was like 97. So here's a guy who's, throwing hard relatively late in the year now. He's not a huge dude. I mean, he's 6'3". I had to ask him because on his page on MLB.com, it says he weighs 160. And I'm looking at the guy, and I'm like, I know he's lanky, but like, there's no way this guy's 160 because like I'm 160. This guy's a pro athlete. He's 6'3". He's been, in pro ball for a few years now. And he said he's really closer to like 180. He's really put on a lot of strength and, some good weight. And that's really what's helped him uptick his velo. Cause I think last year is when he really took a spike into the sort of mid to upper 90s. I guess just like, for either one of you guys, what do you think about, cause I asked him this the other day and I wasn't really expecting him or Hess to say, yeah, we're going to be, have our innings scaled back late in the year. Cause, I don't know, maybe it's a little early for that conversation and I don't know if they would give that away anyway, but the fact that he's already up to, 115 2/3 innings, do you think that in the last 3 weeks of the season here that he might have any starts skipped or start coming out of games sooner? Because he's a guy who's really been not only stayed healthy all year, which he said his goal was to get to over 100 innings, but he's been going like up over 90 pitches in a lot of his starts this year.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I could see a scenario where kind of like Jonah Tong. If you look at Jonah Tong's innings pitched to starts ratio, it's about 5 innings per start. I mean, something like that for ERC where it's, 4 innings, 5 innings, and maybe that doesn't bode well for Somerset in the bullpen and how that's kind of gone for them over the course of the year. But end of the day, what a guy does, how he performs necessarily in AA doesn't mean what to the organization. It's what he can do when he gets to the top level. And they're not going to risk burning him out or anything like that if they think that's a possibility. So I'm sure there's some sort of internal cap on his innings. What that is, I don't know. We don't know. They're sure as hell not going to tell us. So, hopefully for Somerset's sake, he's able to at least contribute down the stretch here and, 3, 4, 5 inning starts, whatever. And who knows, maybe they could even keep him at 6 or 7 like he has been too. But I'd be surprised if you see him get too far over his innings limit from last year.
Yeah. I was listening to Buster Only this morning. He was talking about Jonah Tong, like Mike just said, because he was on ESPN radio this morning. They asked him about Tong, and he said from what he's heard, the Mets feel he has about another 40, 45-ish innings left for the year. If you break that down, there's 5 weeks left in the regular season. Maybe you get 5, 6, maybe 7 starts out of that. So I'd imagine ERC could probably be on a similar path to that, where you're looking at a slew of maybe shorter inning starts as we get closer, because that is always a delicate thing that you do have to manage. And the one thing you wonder is if the Patriots do end up staying in this playoff position, what that rotation looks like for so many younger guys that would be going into a postseason. Now you're already over your inning limits to begin with. When you have guys like LaGrange, guys like Hess, guys like ERC now that you're going to be relying on down the last 3, 4, 5 weeks of the year to hopefully push into the postseason. If you do actually get there, what does that look like? It is going to be interesting to see. But like Mike said, I don't think the Yankees really care at the end of the day if they win the Eastern League Championship or not. The health of the arm is more important than anything. And I'm interested to see how that's going to play out here in these next couple weeks.
Yeah, I asked a similar question to Ben Hess, who also is now over his career high, but I think in innings. But I think it's a little different with him because he's at 71, which is a little over what he threw in college last year. But I mean, 71 innings is a lot less than 115. And Ben Hess also, so people are aware, you look at his game log. I mean, he didn't pitch for the first 2 weeks of June. He said it wasn't anything injury related. He had some kind of personal thing he was dealing with, I guess. So that's why he was out of action. And then when he came back in late June, he had to build his arm back up. So his pitch counts were lower, and he's been building up. So even though he's made, I think, about 15 starts now and is actually pitching again tonight, Tuesday, as we're recording this, he is not actually out all that many innings. So I think it's less likely with him. But I agree with what you guys are saying. And I think, there's probably some kind of plan here internally. I don't think whatever they do, they're not going to necessarily.
We know how that usually goes.
Yeah. They're not going to base it around the playoffs and say, okay, we're going to make sure that he can make, playoff starts for Somerset. I mean, whatever happens with the playoffs happens, and hopefully they can get something out of him at that point. But we'll just have to wait and see.
That was a good ask by you too, Greg, because when we found out that Hess was being promoted, you had pointed out the whole thing that he had missed a couple weeks, and I did some digging online to see if there was any reporting anywhere on what he went down with, and I saw it like reported somewhere by a maybe not the most reliable source, but people were speculating like injury and saying, "Oh, he's injured, but he's not going on the IL." And I was curious to see what his reasoning would be, and he said he wasn't injured, like you said. It was something personal that he had going on, not actually injury related. So I had seen it out there that people were speculating that he was injured, and that wasn't the case. So that was a good ask on your part.
Yeah, had to find that out. But yeah, let's switch over to Hess a little bit now, because just like ERC, he got promoted recently from High A Hudson Valley. He was the Yankees' first round pick last year out of Alabama. So even though he came into pro ball later than ERC, he's actually a year older than him because he pitched 3 years in college. 6'5", he's closer to like 255, really big dude, well built, 4-seam, mid-90s fastball, curveball, slider, changeup. He's made 1 start in Somerset. We saw him last Wednesday. Like I said, he's pitching again tonight, Tuesday. And yeah, I guess, what did you guys think of his debut and just kind of what his profile is overall? Because I guess his first start, he went 4 1/3, 4 hits, 3 runs, a walk, and 4 strikeouts, although 2 of those runs were allowed by a reliever after he left the game. So, and like I said, he's building up his pitch count again, too, so that's also why he didn't go quite as deep. But, Mike, I know you also saw him in Hudson Valley earlier this year, and he's kind of your guy. So tell us a little bit about Ben Hess.
Well, did a story on him for Baseball America pretty early on in his time in Hudson Valley. I saw his first 2 pro starts, and then I was at the AA debut as well in Somerset, like you guys were. That's a tough one, right? Like, it's a little tougher to gauge it when you see it in AA or when you see it in High A. High A, he was pretty dominant early, working in the curveball really well, fastballs low to mid-90s. Like, it was good stuff. The debut was okay. I don't know how much I should really judge that because he's still building back up to an extent too. So it was okay. I don't think the ceiling is necessarily as high as an ERC. Maybe you're looking at somewhere between like a 3-4, maybe even a 5 starter. I'd like to see the velo range get a little bit closer to what it was in college too. I mean, he was a high 90s, dominant fireball guy at Bama. But he also started out of the bullpen there too before he became a starter. So I'm wondering maybe if that role ever changes for him, if that, goes back up or whatever. But the stuff is there. The feel of the pitch is there. The confidence is sure as hell there. That's the one thing I really picked up from him. And I think we talked about that when we talked with him last Thursday as well, as the confidence is really, really evident and really there for him. Like, he fully believes. I mean, he said he wants to be a top of the rotation guy for the Yankees, and he said it publicly. I'm sure a lot of those guys think that, but he said it, he's willing to have the cojones to say that publicly. And, the confidence really stands out for him. And, I think moving forward, I'll be really interested to see what they do with him. But for now, you're probably going to see him back to start out in this rotation, start 2026, would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah, my takeaway from with him in our presser with him last week was that he talked about when he got to the Yankees that they really helped refine some of his pitch shapes, his usage. It's curious to me that his curveball seems to clearly be his kind of second plus pitch he has, his really good off speed pitch. And he said the Yankees basically they didn't really touch it. He's had it since he was like 16. He's just always had a good feel for it. Didn't need to like tweak the shape of that pitch. The Yankees kind of just like doubled the usage of it, which is like I don't really know why he wouldn't have been just throwing that more in college, but it seems to make sense to me to throw that more. They said they did work with him on the shape of his changeup, and he spent a lot of time at the team development complex in Tampa last year. Didn't actually pitch in the system when he got drafted last year. Started in Hudson Valley, started this spring, and yeah. And then the other takeaway I had was when from talking to him, he said, I asked him about, like, the scoreboard was saying, like, all his fastballs were a sinker. So I'm like, is this really a sinker he's throwing? And I asked him about that, and he looked at me like I was crazy or something. He's like, no, it's a four seam. I don't know why the scoreboard says that. He says sometimes also his slider gets read as a curveball. He doesn't actually throw many curveballs to righties. So that's just something to point out. Like, I don't mean to say this to rip the technology or anything at the stadium, but just so people know, like, if you go to a game, the velos seem to be pretty on point, but they seem to misread the movement of pitches sometimes where, like I said, a sinker might, or fastball might read as a sinker, and off-speed pitches might get a little confused, but the velos seem to be pretty on point. But, like I said, he's got the 4-pitch mix that I described before, and, it sounded like he just last year really spent a lot of time at the complex, and like a lot of pitchers have been in this system, he's very complimentary of the Yankees technology, people, facilities, everything he's been learning. It's, you mentioned that SEC baseball is kind of as good as it gets in college, really the best competition you can find outside of pro ball, but it's really a different world when you get to pro ball. And, I know he was a guy that I think had an opportunity to go into pro ball right out of high school, but really wanted to spend some time in college, seemed to get good competition there, and was, kind of a raw pitcher there because he hit a lot of strikeouts last year in college, I think like over 168 innings or so, but his ERA was high, and the Yankees have just refined things with him. And, he's been, pitching well overall in the system. I think he was around a 3.5 ERA in Hudson Valley, and just got to Double-A, so we'll see how he does. But, Matt, I want to give you a moment here to give some thoughts on Ben.
Yeah, I actually wanted to pick Mike's brain. You talked about what his velo was at Alabama, and now it obviously it is what it is. Do you think that maybe affects at all the results in pro ball the first year, working with an arsenal where your velos maybe a little bit lower than what you were working at? Is that a tough adjustment for a guy in pro ball working with a lower velocity like that?
Probably is, but I think it makes sense, right? Like, I think about a guy like LaGrange, not to take it to him again, but I'd be really curious to see what he can do command wise if he lived at like 96, 98, because he's 100, 102 with the walks. I mean, I think he has, I forget the exact number, something like 14 walks in his last 12 or 13 innings. And yeah, it's blow you away type stuff, but no one cares how hard you throw a ball for, right? So with Ben, I think it's kind of teaching him how to live at, 94, 96, implement other stuff that he probably didn't have to, even in the SEC. Like when you have the kind of stuff, that kind of fastball where you can just blow someone away with it, I mean, you're going to rely on that a lot. Pro ball, it doesn't always work that way. So teaching a guy to, kind of live at a certain velo range where maybe there's more in there, but you can kind of get away with him. That's one thing Ben does really well too, that I should say that I noticed in Hudson Valley too, is he's really able to locate that fastball up and in and down and out. He can do whatever he needs to do with that. Being able to command that at 94, 96 maybe is a little bit better than it's 98, but I don't know where it's going necessarily. So to answer your question, yeah, it's probably a tough transition for him. And there's a lot of still learning how to pitch through a complete lineup too, because he was only a starter at Bama for either like a year or a year and a half or something like that. So especially in pro ball, there's some learning how to do that 1 through 9. But being able to open up that arsenal some more, especially the second time through a lineup too, where you'll see his third and his fourth pitch a lot more, is really beneficial to him in the long run.
Yeah, because it feels like he's going to go through maybe that learning curve here a little bit. He's got the pedigree of a first-round pick and all the flair that's going to come around him. But like you guys both alluded to, he's definitely working on stuff. He's not a polished or finished product by any means. And obviously double A is like a separator level. It's a lot different than high A. Guys are a lot more polished in the box. And so when you're working and refining stuff that in your first year of pro ball, it's a tough place to be figuring stuff out. So I'm not really surprised about his first outing. It was okay. It wasn't the worst outing we've seen here recently, and but it wasn't wow stuff either. It was a guy that you'd expect to be figuring stuff out in his first Double-A start in his first year of pro ball. It looks like tonight he's got a similar line right now. It looks like he's gone 3 innings as we record this. 4 hits, 3 runs, a walk, and 4 Ks right now at 61 pitches in the third inning. So kind of similar trek that he was going through in the first start. And yeah, I think these 5 weeks are big for him just to kind of get his feet wet and get kind of gauge AA and use it as a barometer going into the offseason and going into next year when, like Mike said, he ultimately comes back here to start next year. At least he's got a good month under his belt that he kind of has a vantage point to go off of and know what he's getting into next year.
Yeah, I wanted to point out too, as far as the workload, he was at 81 pitches in his debut last week. His most since he threw 99 on May 29th. So he is fully built up now, and will pretty much should be going full workload for the rest of his time here in Double A to finish out the season. So it'll be very, very interesting to see, how many he throws tonight, Tuesday. I mean, obviously that'll be old news when this podcast drops. But
it also struck me. I think he was asked just like what his thoughts in the one start of Double A was, and he was just like, it's not really different. Like, baseball's baseball. Like, he didn't really seem fazed by the promotion or too awestruck or too like overwhelmed by what he saw. To Mike's point, the confidence thing, like, he's not a guy that's going to sit up there and say, I can't believe I'm here. I'm so shocked by the promotion. He seemed like a guy that felt like he belongs there and could pitch there. And he really didn't seem like he was overwhelmed by it at all. He just kind of said, baseball's baseball, no matter where you are. Guys are in the batter's box. I feel like I'm good no matter who I go against type deal. And that kind of struck me as well, that he didn't feel like the promotion or what he saw from a really good Binghamton lineup that obviously promoted now. But when you go Jet Williams, Carson Benj, Ryan Clifford, and Morabito, and guys like that, I mean, that's as good of a minor league lineup as you're going to face in your career, maybe. And to face that in your Double A debut and not to be too overwhelmed by that moment, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I thought he was very composed, especially because that was his first interview with us in Double A. And I think aside from talking to Mike once in High A, really the first time he's been interviewed since he got in the system. And apparently, the PR guy, Mark Rosenoff, told us this, that normally he tells guys like a day in advance or so that we're going to do a group session. He hadn't had a chance to meet Ben yet because he just got there, I guess, either that day or the day before, whatever it was. And so he told him like on the fly, like, oh, we're going to need you like in a little bit here, I guess. So, yeah, he was really cool, went with it. Seems like a guy who's very mature and really not only developed as a pitcher in college, but, matured as a person and is good head on his shoulders, ready to attack here. And the one other thing I wanted to point out earlier that as far as when I asked him too about the possibly being hurt or not, because he didn't go on the IL, and sometimes you just don't know, right? Because I remember like a few years ago, I think it was Everson Pereira who we found out was hurt, but they never put him on the IL because they thought it was going to be a minor injury. Ended up being like a 3-week deal or whatever it was. So sometimes a guy is out of action, not on the IL, but he is injured. So that was why there was a little bit of confusion there with Ben. But in any case,
Pereira starting in center field for Tampa tonight, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's one of the guys who Yankees recently traded, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, like I said, with Ben, it's looking like full steam ahead now. The rest of the year, he's up over 80 pitches now with his pitch count. So it'll be very interesting to see what he and ERC can do here in the last few weeks as Somerset makes a push towards the playoffs. And like we said, see what happens with any of them possibly getting their innings scaled back, more likely ERC, but we will see. So, yes, like we were just saying, Pereira was one of the guys that the Yankees just traded. I did a story on this last week. It was a more busy trade deadline than usual for the Yankees because they made, across 6 different trades they traded 3 current Patriots players and 5 former Patriots players. The 3 current guys were Tristan Vreeling, Ben Shields, and Rock Riggio. And they actually, the trade with Riggio and Shields actually came on the day of the trade deadline, I think like a couple hours after Somerset's game was rained out on that Thursday. And I talked later to Brendan Jones, one of Somerset's outfielders, about that. And he said that some of them were actually still at the ballpark that day after it got rained out. So they did have a chance to say goodbye to Riggio and Shields. Riggio is a guy that Brendan Jones is really close with because they basically come through the system together. They were both promoted on the same day, actually, earlier this year from High A. And Tristan Vreeling was traded to the Giants. So he actually, funny enough, just switched dugouts because Somerset was playing the Giants Double-A affiliate. But yeah, it was a really busy trade deadline where the Yankees were making moves to bring in mostly a bunch of relievers to kind of short the bullpen to shrink and length the games that they can get to the playoffs. So yeah, the Yankees Somerset lost some guys just by virtue of that for the push here. But I guess Mike, what was your biggest takeaway from the trade deadline as far as kind of just how this is going to affect Somerset?
I kind of more look at it from an organizational standpoint in terms of the guys they lost and what they got, right? Like Flores is a big loss. Rodriguez to me is a big loss because what he can bring. Guy I liked at third a lot, but he can catch too. I don't know. I mean, Riggio, the thing you hear about Riggio, and we talked to Raul about this too, is what a leader he was in that clubhouse. I think that's probably your biggest loss, is both off the field and on the field, because Rob was performing really well on the field. You saw his power finally start to get unlocked. But off the field, you would hear a lot about his leadership qualities, and now how George has kind of stepped up. George Lombard Jr. has kind of stepped up and filled some of that. But I think that's a big loss for them. Shields was just kind of working his way back, so not really sure how that affects them. There's always seems like there's an endless supply of arms in the Yankee system. I'm sure Kyle Carr is a guy you might hear from in Somerset before the season is over. So there seems like there's always depth there. But in terms of the position guys that they lost, the Riggio move, I think will A, hurt them, and B, what they ended up really getting in exchange, that whole trade, it's so early to judge any trade, but that hasn't gone well so far at all.
Yeah.
And it certainly would be interesting, too, if those two guys came back to burn them in a playoff race now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that later because Somerset is hosting Hartford next week, which is 6 huge games because, like I said, they're only a game and a half ahead of Hartford in the standings. I'm getting a little worried about, like you mentioned, they traded Jesus Rodriguez. They also traded Rafael Flores. I mean, we've talked about how they have this wealth of catching depth, but if you keep unloading all your depth, suddenly you don't have much depth anymore, and it's putting a lot of pressure on Austin Wells to kind of be the guy up in the big leagues for you. And I mean, I really like Rafael Flores. I think he's going to do a lot. I think he's a really good get for the Pirates. I mean, Bednar is clearly the best reliever the Yankees got, and obviously you got to give up something to get him. That's just the cost of doing business. But what are your trade deadline thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I know in the last episode, I mean, you and I said point blank the Yankees were going to be aggressive at the deadline. They had to be, and I don't think anybody could have saw the tailspin that's kind of come since the deadline for them. I think if they could foresee what was going to happen, maybe they would have not as been of aggressive. But we knew the Yankees were going to lose guys. We knew these prospects were going to be on the move. It was just a matter of to what stature it was going to be. Were they going to dip into the Spencer Jones kind of LaGrange, ERC bucket, or were they going to go more next tier, which is kind of where the Flores and guys like that kind of come in, and that's where they chose to swim in that end of the pool. And obviously they lost a lot of depth. There's no question about it. It's an interesting point. I really hadn't thought about it, but you're right. The amount of catching depth that they have produced, it's mostly depleted now at this point. We talked about it going into this year and at the end of last year, how much they had. Even after the trade of Agustin Ramirez last year, who all credit to Kevin Martir, who I think called him a potential
generational bat
player last year. He certainly looks pretty damn good so far batting cleanup for Miami. And then, of course, they unload Narvaez in a kind of roster crunch move. He's now starting every day for Boston. And so you have all these guys that they've moved off of, and Wells really is having a tough year. I mean, he's had his moments, but he's been in a prolonged kind of slump at this point, and you wonder if the Yankees maybe regret some of those moves that they've made in depleting that depth. But like you said, got to give to get. The Yankees were pretty desperate for relief help given the makeup of the current roster. I think Bednar is a good get. At this point, the way Devin Williams is pitched, he's going to be the guy now. I think he's the first crack at save opportunities. You move Vreeling and Rodriguez and such to get Camilo Doval, who's had a history of closing and a history of pitching in kind of leveraged spots at the back end of the bullpen. The Colorado one does not look great right now after the first couple appearances for Bird.
He's in AAA now, so
yeah, he's helping the Rail Riders at this point more than he is the Yankees. So, but to be seen. It's only been 2 or 3 weeks since that happened, and the one thing that I think stood out to the Yankees and stands out to me is most of those trades for Bednar, Doval, all those guys are team controlled moving forward for more than a year. So, given the price of what that costs, they don't have to go out into the market over the winter and drop a ton of money on relief when you have all these guys that are cost controlled. So I think the Yankees were willing to pay the steep prospect price that they probably did just to get controllable depth. And they did just that. So I think they're hoping that these guys all could kind of form a formidable wall at the back end of that bullpen to pitch and leverage, because that's where you're going to win games in the postseason. Your starters only going 4 or 5 innings in the postseason. You're going with a 3-man rotation, 4-man rotation at best. And that's what the Dodgers did last year. They were winning games with the bullpen almost every night when you go 5, 6, 7 guys deep that all have closing experience. So I think it's just the way that the formula that the Yankees wanted to go with, and they're gonna sink or swim kind of going with that the rest of the way. So necessary moves I think they had to make, but how they're going to play out, I guess we're going to find out here.
Yeah, I mean, and for as many moves as they made and prospects as they traded, they didn't trade any of their absolute top guys. They didn't trade Lombard, didn't trade Jones, didn't trade Strittler, didn't trade Lagrange. Obviously, Spencer Jones was a hot name of the deadline. I think there was a report from I think it was John Heyman who said the Yankees were basically – Spencer Jones was so hot at the time. I don't know how much the Yankees were putting stock into – the hotness of Jones at the time or just how they feel about him overall. But apparently the Yankees weren't really entertaining Jones unless it was in a deal for Paul Skeens from the Pirates, which is a little bit insane to me that they covered him that highly. But they did not trade Jones. He was I've been scorching hot at the time, and he's in AAA, and he's cooled off since then. It's been like a week or so of slumping. I mean, kind of normal stuff, but I feel like you have some thoughts on Spencer, Mike. I mean, just would you have traded Jones at the deadline, or what do you think of what they did?
Ooh, that's tough. Last year, yes, for sure. But I think their patience may pay off. I'd be really interested to see if they start the 40-man clock on him September 1st. And maybe you put him out there as our old friend Shane Spencer type, where it's a call him up, see what he does, see if he gets hot. Nothing really to lose there. There's a lot of upside with that kid for sure. I've always said that, even when I picked him apart the way I did last year, which I think a lot of people did. And he had a 200 strikeout year. I think he kind of earned that. But this year, I think he's mostly turned things around. The K rate is still really high, and that's really concerning when he gets to the big leagues, whoever that should be with, over a bigger sample size, to me at least. But what do you have to lose by giving him a look in a couple weeks and seeing what you have? If you're not going to trade him, and there's really no foreseeable future where he's going to play for you every day in the big leagues, you're only losing maybe a week or two of development in AAA. Get him up there, see what you got. If you're going to hang on to him, let's see it. Let's see what the hype is about. Let's see what's going on. I mean, he's a college bat. It's not a prep bat. They move fast. He's 23, 24 years old. He's got a lot of time in AA. He's done fairly well in AAA. Let's see it. That's my point. Let's see it. If you're going to hold on to him, you're not going to get an asset that you can use now on a team that in theory is kind of a fringe World Series contender the way they're built. They haven't shown that. if you're not going to get a guy in exchange for him who can help that, let's see him.
Yeah, I mean, he's hitting 320 in AAA with a lot of home runs. I mean, I think he would be in the big leagues right now if he wasn't so inexperienced in AAA. I mean, you kind of have to give the guy some runway in AAA first. But I agree that I think he should be a guy that if he keeps hitting fairly well the next few weeks here, he should get a look in September and see if he's possibly part of the picture next year. Because I think. As much as the Yankees, made these moves to give themselves a chance with relievers in the postseason this year, I think next year is like more likely to make a run and really see what you have with some of these young guys, and then figure out for next year what guys you might want to move to really make a push at another championship. But
and I feel like the way the Yankees have operated recently with their top prospects, not many of them have spent a lot of time in AAA. Yeah. Altogether as a collective. I mean, Anthony Volpe didn't spend that long in AAA before he started in AAA the following year. Dominguez did not spend a lot of time in AAA. Yeah. So I think the Yankees have shown the willingness. If you show me a little bit at AAA, we'll give you the showtime. Yeah,
Ben Rice. Look at Ben Rice.
Yeah, Ben Rice.
He was there like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I don't know that the Yankees necessarily need to see all that much at AAA. That's what people always say, like AA is the separator level, and if you could hit there, I think that's kind of a telltale sign. And I think the fact that they finally moved Spencer to AAA after so long was a sign that, like, hey, we're kind of invested in this guy now. It's about the time that we see it, and he's done nothing to show otherwise. He's been better at AAA than he even was at AA, if that makes sense. So I agree with Mike. I mean, perfect time for a September call-up. If the reason the September call-up exists is situations similar to this, just to kind of see what you have. Yeah. He's a highly liked prospect. We've heard people, not us, but fans in general have heard about this guy now for 3 years. First-round pick, high pedigree. He's had a great year. He's got a 30 home run season in the minor leagues. I think you owe it to him and the organization to kind of get a look for just a couple weeks and kind of see how is he overmatched at all? Is he overmatched at the big leagues, or kind of what are we going off of here? So I'm interested to see if that does kind of come to fruition here in the next 18, 20 days or so, and see if he gets that call.
You better be sure, though, if you're going to start that 40-man clock, you better be sure that he's ready.
Yeah. Speaking of the guys you mentioned, like I remember too, like when I first started doing this almost 10 years ago. I mean, another guy was like Labor Torres. The Yankees had one of the top prospects in baseball. Once he conquered AA, he was in AAA for maybe, I don't know, was it a couple months, something like that. And I think the thing too with Spencer is, there's some talk on our deadline that it's like almost like it's a good time to move him if you want to, because the danger of bringing him up to the big leagues is like, well, if he comes to the big leagues and you're not completely sure, or you are sure, but he struggles, then his value kind of plummets a little bit. So we'll see. But I think it seemed like there wasn't necessarily a guy on the market, like a clear-cut guy to get. I mean, obviously, I think asking for Paul Skeens for Spencer and other guys is too much. But I don't know that there was really a guy available, because there, even starting pitchers, there weren't. Even guys like Joe Ryan didn't get moved. I mean, there wasn't really a marquee name to go get, I don't think, anyway, for Spencer when the dust kind of settled. But
for anybody that was actually moved at the deadline, there's nobody you kick yourself in the ass and say, oh, man, why weren't we involved in that? I would have definitely put Spencer in that deal to get it over the finish line. Like, that guy didn't move. And I don't even know that the names that were even floated about potentially being available, like you alluded to Joe Ryan, you heard that name floated a bunch. You heard Sandy Alcantara with Miami. Is that a guy you would have moved for him? I don't know. I mean, has won a Cy Young. He's been one of the better pitchers in baseball, but we're a couple years removed from that. Bouncing back from a really bad injury, having a down year. I don't know. Value's low right now. But I don't know. Even the names floated. I'm not sure that there was a guy maybe out there at this deadline that you considered putting him in a package. And just given the need and how competitive the market was for a guy like Suarez, I think if he had maybe a year or two of control, maybe that's something you think about given the year he's had and the team need. If you have that guy locked in for the next 2 years, that's something maybe entertained. But for 8 weeks of a Eugenio Suarez, that's probably not a move you're making. And the Mariners gave up a lot to get him for the last 2 months of the pennant run.
Mm-hmm.
But good point by you as well. If you do call him up and he does struggle and gets exposed a little bit, are you diminishing the value? Because if you intend to still maybe trade him, the winter is probably the time to do that, when maybe more guys become available, talks progress, guys that you don't really kind of see on the horizon of being moved maybe become available. If you kind of keep him at AAA, he mashes, the value stays where it is. You go into the winter and maybe now it's a guy that really doesn't have a blemish in the major leagues on his record. So maybe that's something that is accounted for as well. It's an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that he has that hot streak, right, and the Yankees don't move him tells you that the Yankees certainly believe in him to some degree, and think there could be something here because I don't think his value would ever be higher. With the way he was swinging the bat at that point, his age. I mean, the guy gets older, he gets exposed possibly later. Like the value is only going to go down. So, yeah. And you brought up Suarez. I mean, I mentioned on the last pod that I think he is a guy I would have moved Spencer for. Someone then commented on YouTube on our last pod about, would you still do that? I was kind of with you guys. And then now Spencer's got like a 3,000 OPS over the last week. And, that made me kind of pause more. The fact that he just has continued to really tear it up. And then thinking more about Suarez, I mean, the problem with him too is like, he's not a good defensive third baseman. The Yankees definitely need defense right now. They're doing a lot of little things wrong and really need good infield defense. So, yeah, for a rental, like the way Spencer swinging the bat at that point, I could see that. I understand not moving him for Suarez, and there wasn't, like we just said, there wasn't really a starter, I don't think. But yeah, just going back to a couple of other guys that were moved too. I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting because Riggio and Shields are coming in next week when Somerset hosts them. Somerset will host them next week and then play 6 at Binghamton to end out August. So tough August here to stay in the race, although Binghamton did just send about a handful of guys up to AAA. Some of their the Mets' top prospects are going up there now, so or are there now. So we'll see how that affects Binghamton. But yeah, I mean, right now Somerset is in line for the playoffs. So they can hold on here at a Hartford. So it'll be interesting few weeks, and I guess I want to throw out there too that we're coming up on a couple more homestands here before the season ends, unless there is playoffs, and Somerset might have some home games at that point. We will see, but we are hoping to have a couple more podcasts at least, and not going to reveal who it is yet because we have to get clearance on them, and we want to keep it a surprise. But I think, are trying to get a player in studio for a live interview because we kind of did tease that before, and we don't want to just be inserting audio from interviews we've done, although we hope you guys have been enjoying that too. So, yeah, the season is rapidly approaching the end here, but there is some good stuff in store potentially with Somerset, like we've been talking about. A couple pitchers added, Hess and ERC, that definitely make this rotation very intriguing with a lot of the Yankees' top arms now in that rotation. Either of you guys have some closing thoughts?
Yeah, it's hard to believe there's only 5 weeks left. I think you and I were talking in the press box the other day. There's, I think, only 2 homestands left. Hartford next week, and I believe they have Reading in September, or they close at New Hampshire maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 left at home and 3 on the road. So it's pretty crazy how quickly the year's gone by. But yeah, I mean, if they're going to make a postseason run, pitching is the way to do it. And the roster's been depleted by trades, promotions, the one influx of kind of talent that they've gotten is in the rotation, and generally that's what you want here at this time of the year to keep opponents' bats at bay. And now that the team that you are chasing conceivably, though not really, in Binghamton did just lose their 3 best offensive players, and Hartford now is probably the team that you're going to want to look towards next week. And I think, long story short, I think the next 2 weeks are going to determine, where this team finishes, with the team right behind them and the team right in front of them in the standings are the next 2 teams on the docket. I think when you get to that first week of September, you're going to have a lot more clear idea of what that playoff picture kind of looks like. So I think we're in for a pretty exciting, next 2-3 weeks, assuming they take care of business in Portland this week, who's, having a tough year, game out of last place here in the standings. So assuming they take care of business and kind of just do what they should do at this point in the year, I think we're in for a really, exciting next 2 weeks to determine what the playoffs could potentially look like.
Yeah, these years always fly by, man. Like, I was just thinking, I'm already in my 4th year here in Somerset after I did 4 years in Trenton. So I don't know. It feels like a lot for me, but I know I don't hold a candle to Mike, who's in the year like 50 in Somerset. So
Thank you. It's year 23. First of all the credentials are in this box right over here.
I was close.
Yeah. No, for me, just to answer the last question, I'll be in Hudson Valley tomorrow. And I'm kind of curious. The roster that you see now typically isn't the roster that you see when the playoffs start. There's a lot of, especially with Scranton going long, you're going to see and big league call-ups happening out of there. You're going to see some roster shuffle. Some guys are going to be coming out of Somerset to go up to Scranton and vice versa. So I'm kind of curious to see some names who might be able to help Somerset kind of down the stretch, or even when the playoffs start. Sometimes you even see that where guys get called up, pretty much to make their, AA debut or a level debut in the playoffs. I'm going there to talk to Caden Kent tomorrow. College bat, was drafted in the 3rd round. Jeff Kent's son. I think that's a guy you could see much sooner rather than later in Somerset. Maybe not necessarily at the end of this year, but maybe even to start next year or whatever. So again, Kyle Carr is, I think, a guy you see if he stays healthy. Maybe Bryce Cunningham comes back from injury, stays hot. Who knows? I think there's a lot of guys there who could potentially contribute towards a playoff run, and that's kind of what I want to go see tomorrow. So be interesting few weeks, like you guys have said, coming up in Somerset. Binghamton losing a lot of their guys makes things a little easier. Somerset's some of their key guys going to Hartford make things a little bit more difficult with how close that race is. So it's going to be really curious to see how things play out for sure. Can't wait.
Yeah, I was looking real quick here to see if there's any other big promotions we should mention. Next Wednesday, the 20th, is Star Wars night. I'm a big Star Wars guy, so that always excites me. But I don't know if there's any big. I guess we're done with bobbleheads, right? No more bobbleheads for the year. Got one more Diners game on September 5th. Against New Hampshire will be the last homestand in the first week of September.
Oswaldo Cabrera is coming back to the ballpark. That's the rumor, huh?
Oh yeah, rumor has it.
Right. Oswaldo will be signing for fans. He's out for the season with an injury for the Yankees, right? So
yes,
he played in Somerset.
He was the MVP in 21, right? League MVP.
Yes, the AA Northeast League. Yes.
Yeah, the lone MVP of the Northeast League,
where Somerset had the 2nd best record in the league but did not make the playoffs. That one, remember that?
Yep. Jermis Garcia, league leader in home runs.
Yep, he had 31 that year. Is the Spencer Jones is the most recent guy to hit 30 since Dermis in the Yankees organization. So there you go.
It's the Jermis Garcia award.
Very similar profiles on those two guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have the big 3 back, as Mark refers to us. It's good to have you back, Mike. We missed you, man.
Glad we could get this in before more traveling could be in your horizon. So it's always good to get the proverbial band back together and crank out an episode for the masses. So good to have you back, Mr. Mashmore.
Yep, always good to be back with you guys, my guys. As you said, I'll be traveling to the Dominican sometime soon here, and I think it's September. Wow, August 19th. I fly out there allegedly as of right now, so might miss a couple games in Somerset, but excited to get back there, and hopefully we can bang on another one of these real soon. So.
Yeah, Mike is a man of many gigs, but he hits the ballpark as much as he can, and we always enjoy having
Hey, I'll see you on Saturday, Greg. Don't talk like you're not a man of many gigs too. So.
Yeah, I have I have my hands in a fair share of things. Yeah, me and Mike will both be in the Meadowlands on Saturday. We both cover the NFL for the Trentonian. I'm on the Giants beat, and Mike does a lot of Jets games, travels to some games even. So I'm sure that will be riveting. We will get to watch Tommy DeVito against
Adrian Martinez, perhaps. Who knows?
there we go. Yeah.
Can't wait. Tyrod's out for the rest of the preseason, so it won't even be him. So who knows? Maybe we'll get Justin Fields for a whole series.
Yeah. Would be riveting.
Mm.
We will see. But thanks again, everyone, for listening. We will be back hopefully in a couple weeks here. As always, follow and like and subscribe to us on all the various podcasting platforms and YouTube. Please leave us comments. Let us know how we're doing and what things you'd like to see. And thanks for tuning in. We hope we're bringing you guys some unique perspectives on AA baseball. So, thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, boys. We'll talk soon.